Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's evening for me, but wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning or afternoon for you, thanks for joining us. My name's Ian Nicholson. I'm filling in for Nicole Jardin. So Nicole is our founder and CEO. I'm Vice President of Solutions at Emerald Associates. Uh, Joining me tonight and doing all the heavy lifting is Sue Hopkins, who's one of our implementation specialists based in Wyoming. So let's talk about how people struggle with P6. And we'll skip that. So when people are dealing with P6, one of the things that often challenges them is how do you manage the data within the software? People find that although P6 is very powerful, loading information in and getting information out or making mass changes to information can be a real struggle. Um, and we've been dealing with Primavera P6 since it first came out in 1999, and we always hear the same things from our clients. How do I get information in? How do I get information out of the system? So the first real challenge people have is administering the system. So we had an example a few years ago with a client who had 7 or 8 different databases. And every time they had a new client, this was an engineering company, they would start up a new database and they would want to copy all the users over, copy all the structures and everything else. But they wanted to have a separate database so they could let the client come in and they didn't need to worry about security. So they had all of these different databases and moving people and administering the system so that you could make duplicates was very difficult for them. So P6-Loader allows you to very quickly create a database and set up all the users and set up all the structures and set up all the security privileges and everything else just in a matter of minutes from an Excel template. The next thing people struggle with is how do I get my projects built? And if I have projects, how do I get my baselines managed? So, how can I um, when my scope changes, how do I update the baseline? How do I resync the baseline with my main project? Or perhaps what I want to do is I want to reset my project. A lot of times, what happens is people are doing testing of an interface, for example, and they need to reset everything back to a base condition for testing purposes. Again, those things are really difficult to do in P6, but really easy with P6-Loader because you can just create everything as you need. Um, the next thing people struggle with is data integration. Now, a lot of times people want to move information in and out of P6. They don't necessarily want to go and buy a full-blown integration package, maybe to move data from their SAP system to P6. A package like Maxavera could cost $300,000 to $500,000. What they really need to do is they just need to move data from one system to the other in a fairly easy way. And one of the nice things about working with Excel is virtually every tool out there will allow you to dump information into Excel. So you can take information from SAP or whatever asset management system you're using, or your contact management system, or whatever other system that you're working in, and you can take that and you can just dump the information into Excel and use P6-Loader to integrate that. Um, the next thing people struggle with is team engagement. Now, um, I'm someone who's used Primavera, as I said, since 1999. So that's a lot of years working with Primavera. So it's pretty easy for me. P6 is I know where all the icons are, I know where all the buttons are. But the reality is, for a lot of people, P6 is very intimidating. There's a lot of different things that you can change in the tool, and clicking the wrong button can completely screw things up. So a lot of people are quite intimidated by P6. So what we really want to do is we want to have people able to update the schedules, but we don't necessarily want to have to train them on P6 and get them out of their comfort zone. We want them to be able to work in a tool that's easy to work with. And so P6-Loader makes that really easy, because what we can do is we can just send out Excel spreadsheets for people to update their schedules, and they send them back in. We check them over real quick and we load them into P6 using P6-Loader. I have a number of clients doing this. In fact, one client told me that he used to use the Primavera mail function in the old P3 tool, and that working with Excel has allowed him to recreate those processes he used almost 30 years ago in P3. The other thing people struggle with is setting up consistent portfolios. So with P6, one of the things that we hear a lot from customers these days is that they really want to be able uh, to to get P6 information out, and they want to be able to use it within their data warehouse. So they've got this data warehouse system. Maybe it's um, Oracle Data Warehouse, or it's SAP BW, or it's one of these other tools out there, Tableau or something like that. Um, and what they really want to do is they want to be able to pull information out of Primavera and make it part of their big um, corporate system. And the challenge with that is always, how do I actually get P6 in a state so that everything's got standardized coding and standardized reporting? Well, P6-Loader is great for that because you can set project codes, you can set activity codes, you can set user-defined fields, you can do all those kind of things again and make sure that all of your projects are properly aligned. We have another tool called P6QA, which is also a great tool in that it ensures that you have proper structures in all of those fields, but for creating them and loading them in the first place, P6-Loader is fantastic. So let's talk about how P6-Loader works. So the first thing is, it doesn't matter where you are or how you access P6. P6-Loader will work with just about anything. So let's say that you've got everything on premise. That's fantastic. P6-Loader can be installed on your network, and it will work from your desktop Excel to your P6 that's locally installed. You can't even run it on a single workstation if you've got, we have a P6-Loader standalone version, which is there just for one or two people working in a job site trailer somewhere, all the way up to big organizations. Now, maybe you have a hybrid structure where some of it is in the cloud and some of it is local, or maybe you want P6-Loader to be in the cloud. That's a possibility as well. So we can set up P6-Loader anywhere you want, and it will still be able to access your local Excel and P6. The other option is maybe some or all of your tools are in the cloud. So I have one client where they've got P6 running on the Oracle Cloud, the OCI Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. They've got Excel running in the Microsoft Cloud, and they've got P6-Loader as well. And P6-Loader acts as the conduit between those different clouds. So however you're structured, P6-Loader will support it. Now, P6-Loader uses either the Primavera APIs or the Primavera Web Services. So again, depending on how you're structured, we'll work with either one. Now, one of the things that's interesting is when you want to actually exchange information with P6, there's a lot of challenges around different technologies. So many years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago, Primavera came out with this tool called the SDK, the Software Developers Kit. And it worked not bad. It was a bit of a challenge to set up, but once you had it set up, it worked reasonably well. But there was a couple challenges in it. And the biggest one was, to use it, you had to be an admin super user. So that meant that as soon as you wanted someone just to maybe upload some activity progress, you effectively gave them access to absolutely everything within your Primavera system. So that was a little sketchy, right? We didn't want to have people who just had to update a couple of activities having access to everything. Um, then a few years after that, Primavera came up with the Xml Import process. And that worked pretty good too, or still works pretty good too. There's a few challenges with it. The biggest one is it will only update project data. It won't let you update anything global. Um, and it doesn't really work with P6 security. So anything that's in that Excel file is going to import. And again, you have to be a project super user. So you don't have to be an admin super user anymore, but you need to be a project super user to be able to use it. So again, it's still not really giving us a real secure loading environment. It is supported, however, the SDK is no longer supported. So people said, okay, well, what if I just go and I'll just take the Xcr file that Primavera creates, I'll put it in a text editor, and I'll just change the data in there. And in fact, Primavera made a tool called the Xcr Parser that would help you do that. The problem with that whole process is when you import an XCR into Primavera, there is no data validation at all. So if you make a mistake and you type something incorrectly, it's going to crash your system, and Oracle will not support you if that happens. So we had an example where a client was moving an activity code from being at the project level to being at the global level, and they were editing the XCR to do it, and they spelt the word global incorrectly. And what happened is it imported, but every time someone would try and log into the system after that, the system would just crash because it would find this word global spelt incorrectly when it was loading the dictionaries, and it didn't know what to do, so it would just shut down. So very risky to be manually manipulating those XCRs. Finally, Primavera came out with this XML import, and it works reasonably well as well. It again, it's project level only though. It doesn't let us access any of our global information. Um, it is supported by Oracle, and it does do data validation, um, but it only does one project at a time. So as soon as you have a second project, all of the neat features that they built into it get turned off. So P6-Loader is kind of the only option out there that lets you access global data, respects all the security in P6. So if I can only update activities in one project in P6 security, I can only update one project's activities in P6-Loader because all the security that's set up under my user is enforced by P6-Loader. The data is validated by the APIs or web services. It's fully supported by Oracle. You can extract selectively information that you want, and Sue will show you how the filtering works. And you can pull out multiple projects at once. Not only projects, but baselines. So you have a lot of flexibility in the way that the system works. Now, as I mentioned before, you can access global information, you can access resources and roles, you can access projects and activities, and we've also bundled a number of utilities to make it much easier to manage P6. So the first thing is when you decide to run an extract of P6 data, you have global topics, user topics, and project. So user topics are around user security, user accounts, all that kind of stuff, EPS, OBS. You've got global information, which would be all of your dictionaries, and then you've got project-specific information. Now you can, as I mentioned before, you can extract one project or many projects. You can extract baselines, you can extract resources, expenses, steps, all that kind of stuff. Once you've actually got it into Excel, you can make the changes you need to make. And then you can upload it back into P6. So you can run a macro, you can pull information from some other system and format it and load it up. It's very quick, very simple. So the latest version of P6-Loader has a whole bunch of different areas, and Sue will talk about a lot of them. I'm not going to go through the exhaustive list, but there's a lot of different functionality in there. We can read XCRs, we can read XMLs, we can scrub XCRs. If you've ever run into the errors with the POBS records or the risk type records, we clean those out. You can run job services, so you can, after you load all your data, you can reschedule or re-level. You can roll down calendars and activity codes from being global to being project to being EPS level, depending on which areas you're looking at. You can edit steps. You basically can do all of these different things within P6-Loader. So let's take a look. I'm going to hand this over to Sue, and Sue's going to actually show you how the tool works. Okay, Sue, you should have control.
Okay, yes, I do. So I'm just going to share my screen so that you can take a look at the live portion of this demo. So what we're seeing here is the login screen for P6-Loader. And just like P6, we can actually point P6-Loader at many different databases. So this allows you to, in the case of my first example that I will show you, take from one database and load it into another, if that's what you need to do. Or if you just have several databases that you're working with, we can actually handle that with one version of this piece of P6-Loader. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign in, and we'll take a look at the front page of our tool here. All right, well, it looks like it's taking a moment. Okay, I'm just going to try. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is the front page, and the first thing it shows you is what tasks and loads and extractions have occurred in the loader throughout time. So as you have different users looking and working with different types of data, you can actually see what user is working with that data, as well as what they did. You know, did they upload something? Did they extract something? And things like that. You can see if it was successful or if maybe there was a problem. And then it'll also show you the database in which they were working if you have more than one. Now, the first thing I like to go over is the extraction piece, because this is essentially going to show me what is available for me to work with in P6-Loader. So you can see that we have the different modules that are basically what you can have, you know, the groups that the type of data that you're going to work with. So if I wanted to work with user information, I have several different things that I can do there. Global project profiles, the security profiles, users, assigning OBS to the users, and their resource access. I also have global information, meaning that I can look at all of the global items that are available and use those. Now it looks like my scroll is not working well. So I need to pop back into another screen and see if it'll allow me to scroll. Okay, let me try logging in again. Maybe since it took a little while for me to log in. There we go. Maybe I'll have better luck now. Okay, so now global information. Nope, I'm still having trouble scrolling. It could be I'm on a an external machine here, and so I don't know if there's something going on with that or what else I can do. Let me see if I can actually start from the very beginning and see what I can do here. All right, there we go. Now I can scroll. Okay, so you have the information for, you know, all the global pieces of information that you might want to deal with. Also, we have roles and resources, risk information, project information, as well as activities. Now, we also have, as Ian mentioned before, some utilities. And these are the usage sheets. The majority of them are called usage sheets. And what these can do is really assist you with keeping track of what's happening with your global data in Primavera. So if I wanted to find out where I had any activity codes and where they are used, what projects they're used in, as well as how many times. And if I were going to clean up data and maybe have, you know, old projects that are no longer existing, but still have those activity codes at the global level, I could see whether maybe I would want to delete those and get them out, maybe combine them with another activity code that maybe is, you know, a duplicate or something like that. So these usage sheets are very useful as well. Now, if I already know what I'm going for, I can certainly do a search on either side. Now, on my right side is where I have essentially my projects all laid out as they would be in my EPS. So let's say I want to work with P6-Loader files. I could start typing P6-Loader, and it's going to narrow down my list so that I can go and take a look at which ones I want to grab. And if I wanted to do like an entire EPS with those, I could check mark that, it's going to mark all of them. Maybe if I only wanted to do one project and bring that information out, I could just choose one project. Now, the first piece that I want to show you as an example is taking data, an EPS and an OBS structure, essentially from one database, and using that information to quickly spin up a brand new structure in a new database. So I'm going to use the structure that I have in this database that I'm showing you here. So I'm going to pull out this information, the EPS structure, as well as the OBS that goes along with it, and set that up in a brand new database. Now my new database is just empty. I don't have any OBS and I don't have any projects EPS set up. So I'm going to use P6-Loader to create that. So the first thing I would do is go in, and I know that it's global information, so I don't really need to have any projects selected. I just need to go into the global information, and I'm going to select my EPS and OBS. Then I can say I want to extract that information. So as I extract it, it's going to go out to that main sheet showing me that it's running, and then I'm ready to download it. So I can click download, and it's going to go and open up my information in Excel. Now in Excel, what I can do is I can manipulate these. I can edit them as I need to, and essentially create the structure based on this other structure that I would like to actually work with. So when I do that, there's actually some color coding that we've added onto these sheets to help guide you on what types of information are important and what types are you don't necessarily have to have included in your sheet. So if you have a column that has a red background to it, like this name column here, that name column is actually going to indicate that this is required information for, in this case, if you can see the tabs down here at the bottom, my OBS. So I brought out EPS and OBS. So I have two separate tabs for each one of those. In my OBS, I need, at the very least, to have an OBS name that is, so I can work with it. If I already have information that is in my database, and in this case, my OBS name, and I wanted to rename it, I can use the columns with kind of the orangish red font on them. So that's going to say this is basically a remapping column, if you will. Now, the blue and the gray are optional columns. Of course, the gray here you can see is just informational. This isn't anything that I can change to send back, because essentially it's just giving me information about when it was created, who created it, etc. So if I wanted to, I could just remove these out and not have them. Now I'm going to pop on over to the blue are information that you can actually load back in, that you can edit, that you can create new, whatever you need to do with this particular OBS in this case. I can remove these and it doesn't matter if they're gone or not. The one important piece is this name here. I have to have that. So I can work with anything else in whatever order I need to. Now I'm just going to go over to the EPS really quickly here and show you that we've got my EPS. Now on the EPS, you can see that I have 3 mandatory pieces of information. So depending on which module you're in, you're going to have different pieces of mandatory information. And this is just helping the interface, the web services or the API land this information in the proper place. Now, I've already created I've cleaned up these structures into a case where I can load this in. I didn't want absolutely everything coming in from what I pulled out of that other database. So I've cleaned this up a little bit. Now you can tell right away that I have an extra column here because the OBS only had this name column. Now it doesn't matter that this is red. What matters is that P6-Loader doesn't recognize the word cleanup. It doesn't recognize that header. So when I load this back in, it's going to skip over it. But what I've done is I've used this column to actually kind of edit what I needed to and make all of these capitals instead of a mixed capitals and smaller letters. I also found that I actually am going to put a training and a sandbox area in my new database, and they were not in that original one. So I've added those in those highlighted areas there. Now for my EPS, I've started cleaning it up. I still have some stuff that I want to deal with, but I want to start being able to allow myself to go in and get these set up fairly quickly. I want to do like a base EPS structure so that other people can start working in it. So I've done my cleanup at the top. I've added my two new EPS nodes, and then I've left a blank line in between the data at the top that I want to load and the data down below that I do not want to load. P6-Loader hits that blank line and it stops loading. It knows not to load anything past that blank line. So let's go ahead and load this up into my brand new clean database. Now, of course, I'm going into a different database, so I'm going to log out and I'm going to select the database that I actually want it to go into. Now, all that's set up here right now is my admin, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my admin account so that I can load this into the proper database. Now, the piece that I'm working with here is this upload option over here on the left side. So when I click that, it essentially says, hey, what do you want to upload? Select the files. So when I go in and I select those files, I can browse to wherever I have those files stored. I can select the file I want to upload, and then I can set it up to upload. Now, if I wanted to select several files and upload them in succession, I could select more than one file, and it's going to line them up underneath one another. And then P6-Loader will load them in the order that they are listed. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload this file. So I'm going to go out. It's going to tell me it's working. The message is kind of telling me what it's working on loading at this point. And when it's finished, it tells me it's successful. So then I could go back into my web version of my clean database. I can refresh my data doing an F5. And once it loads, I can see that here's my new structure, including my sandbox and my training, as well as the different OBS information that I also included in that upload. So I've got those already done, and it was very quick for me to use data from another database, OBS, EPS structures, to get this new database spun up and running. Now, another thing that I do like to show is one of our other utilities that come with P6-Loader, and that is a let me open this up. That is a code roll down feature for activity codes. So I have a project here that I have, and you can see that I've got some problems with my my codes here. I have, a global code that doesn't necessarily belong at the global level. I've got duplicate equipment codes here that actually need to be combined as well as put at my EPS level, because these are useful only at the EPS that I'm working in for this project. Then I've got specifications. Again, I've got two different lists. Those need to be combined. And then I've got a work order list. And these two pieces, the specifications as well as the work order, I want to push down to my project level. So in order to do that, I'm going to use my activity code roll down. Now we also have a roll down that is available for calendars so that you can take global calendars down to a project level. So we do have that ability also. I'm going to show you codes in this case. So I'm going to take that phase code that was originally global. I'm going to roll it to that EPS scope. And just for ease of seeing that roll down, I'm going to rename it. I wouldn't have to rename it if I don't want to. And then I'm going to assign it to the EPS where it belongs. Now on my equipment, as well as my specifications, I need to combine these. So I'm going to say what scope I want these to reside at, and then I'm going to give them the same name. And so what is going to happen is it's going to combine those two lists into this P6L equipment, and it's going to put it at the EPS level in that EPS ID. Now, on my specifications, I'm doing the same thing. However, I'm pushing them to the project level, as well as my work order is going to get pushed to the project level. Now, you can see I'm not renaming my work order. I'm going to keep that the way that it is, and so I don't have to put a roll down name there. And then I am assigning it to the proper projects where I want it to reside. The last piece in this last column here is asking whether I want to delete the original code. So do I want to keep these ones temporarily, maybe, and make sure that they've cleaned up and that maybe they're not used in other projects where I need to deal with them in that respect and things like that. So I can actually keep those in case I want to just verify that I've done everything I needed to with those codes in this particular roll down. Now, in the case of my work order, I don't want to keep that at my global level. I know that it needs to just go directly down into this one project. This is the only project that it needs to deal with. And so I am going to actually delete that at the global level. So when I do that, again, I'm going to go into my P6-Loader. I need to log into the proper database again. And I'm going to run that or upload that file again. So I'm going to select the file, I'm going to open it, and I'm going to upload. Now, it's going to be telling me what it's doing. It's rolling down 2 of the 6. It's now on 4 of the 6. Then when it's completed again, it's going to tell me it is successful, and I am able to go back into Primavera, refresh my data, and it looks like I've got an issue there. So I'm just going to shut down and come back in because it looks like I had a hiccup in I have to apologize. My internet has been a little bit sketchy today, and so I'm kind of seeing the effects of that. Okay, let me open that up again. So now my codes are gone, which we expect because we have rolled them. Now I can go into my columns here and I can find my new equipment code that was created, as well as my new phase code, and roll down. And then in my project level, I have my specs and my work order that are there. Now when I say okay, I can see that the information that was previously at different levels and in different lists is now combined, reassigned to my project. I don't have to go out there and reassign these again. P6 does it, or P6-Loader does it for me. And all of my information is now cleaned up and looking much better. So I have consistency about where they're located, as well as the lists, the dictionaries have been combined if needed. Now, the second thing I would like to show you is creating a brand new project with P6-Loader. Now, this is going to cover a lot of different modules in Primavera. or in P6-Loader. So we can essentially see that we have a empty project. There's nothing in this. I don't have any calendars. I don't have any steps, no logic or anything like that. So when I go into the load for this particular new project, I can step through and set up the items that I need to create my new project. Now, in this one, I'm setting up the WBS. So I'm able to take this from maybe, my planning group or whatever, and set up my EPS structure as they have lined it out here. I can set up hierarchy so that I can have them have children. I can have the WBS with children, and I can name them. I can assign them an ODS ID, and I can set all of those pieces that you might be interested in setting at your WBS level. Now, in creating this particular project, I have some new project codes that I want to create in my project. So I've defined them here. I need a discipline, I need an area, and I need a work package. So I define them here. And then in the activity code, I can define them. I can set up that dictionary for them. So I can see all of my disciplines those are the blue area. Those are the new values that I want to add, as well as in my area and in my work package. So it's going to set up those values for me in that activity code. Then I'm going to start creating my activities. I'm going to give it an ID, tell it what project I want to go to. So if I wanted to load more than one project with activities at a time, I simply need to give it the project ID that it needs. And then I can assign a WBS. And in this case, I have actually used the functionality in Excel to create the name of my activity. So I've added this extra title column here, as well as I'm going to use my area and my work package values to create the name of my activity. And I'm going to use the concatenate functionality in Excel. Now, I don't have to copy and paste the value. I can keep the formula in there, and P6-Loader is going to read the actual returned value. Now, you can also see where I'm setting up a project code. I'm setting up that project code that we just set up, as well as the work package, the discipline. I can start looking at some global codes at the activity level that I want to set. And so I can set those all at the same time, as well as, any other items that I wanted to set. So I have my type of activity and things like that as I scroll over. So you can see some of these really have quite a lengthy amount of information in there. So you could see the value of removing the columns that you aren't working with, so that it makes it a little bit easier to deal with the large amount of data that you're loading. Now I can set up expenses on each one of my activities that need them. I can assign cost accounts, expense categories, decide the accrual type, things of that nature, as well as my planned cost, my price per unit, and things like that. Now, with this particular project, I also need to set up a cost account structure. So I'm going to set up that cost account structure for this particular project. Now, I have a couple of activities that require steps, and a lot of them are actually the same steps, just on a different activity. So again, I could possibly just use my functionality of my Excel to go and create those steps with a copy and paste. Now I'm going to look at a calendar. I have a resource that uses a 10 on, 4 off rotating calendar. Now, if you've ever set up a calendar like this in Primavera and you are trying to click the days on and highlight those and say those are work days, and then count the next 4 that those are non-work days, and then count again 10, it's really easy to sometimes just mess up your count, and then you kind of have to start from the beginning again. So an easy way to do this is to set it up with P6-Loader. So I would set the work times on each day of the week. And then for my exceptions, I can again use the functionality of Excel to calculate for me when those days off are. And then hop to my next 10 days and continue down with those. So I can set them all up at one time using formulas. So a lot more accurate. Now I also need to set up a contractor resource code type for this particular project, and I'm going to populate that. I also need to set up my resources. So you can see that I'm setting up my resources. I'm actually assigning that rotating calendar that I'm creating in this same load. Primavera or P6-Loader knows what order to sign up to put all these in on to load them so that they are successful. So it knows that it needs to go out and create the calendar before it can assign it here. It knows that it needs to go out and create my contractor before it assigns it here. I have some other codes that have already been defined that I'm also going to set. So I do have the ability to do that all in one load if I need to. If I don't need to, I can certainly just, if I just want to set up resources, I could just load this resource tab instead. Then after I have my resources, of course, I want to assign those to my project activities. So I can assign those. If I needed to add some cost accounts in there, I could certainly do that. I can also start doing some planning here. So I can do my plan duration, I can do my units, my plan costs, my units per time. I can set all of those proficiency things and things like that. So everything can be handled with P6-Loader. So lastly, I'm going to set up some logic through my schedule. So I can set my predecessors as well as my successors. I can set the type. I can even put lag in here if I need to. Now, another thing I can do is I could handle cross-project relationships in this same load. So if I had another project that I needed to add a relationship with, I could simply put the project ID of that other project and the activity ID and create that cross-project relationship. And in a lot of cases, when we have people that are bringing in, say, contractor progress, and they're bringing in those schedules, what they do is they use P6-Loader to reattach those milestones or those cross-project relationships every time they bring in that new updated schedule. So this is a really easy way that you can update those relationships in those cross-projects relationships there. So let's just go ahead and load this up so that we can see our new project and everything that is ready to go on that. So I'm going to grab that file and I'm going to upload. And while I'm waiting for that to upload, I'm just going to open up my resources here so that we can see those resources that are also going to come in. So they're going to come in, and looks like I have not deleted them. So they are going to get deleted right now. All right, so that didn't work. I have an issue with my internet again that's giving me fits about going out and grabbing what it needs to. And of course, I'm going to have to reopen all of those again, so I apologize. Okay, so open up my activities as well as my resources. And of course, have to do that filter again. And let me try to delete these one more time. And actually, I don't want to delete them because they did come in with that load already. Since I went back in, it means that I have refreshed my data. So the resources are loaded. You take my word for it, please. And it also has that calendar that's assigned, as well as any of those codes that I needed to have assigned to each one of them, including my contractor code here. If I go back into my activities, I can now see that I have my my calendars assigned, my durations. I have my activities that that have steps on them. I have my logic, my resources and roles, as well as my planning that I have all loaded in all at the same time with one load. Now, again, keep in mind you don't have to do this all at one time. You can do it a piece at a time if that is how you're getting your information in. So maybe you've got your WBS first and you go and you want to set that up. And then you have the resources that you know that you need to have in there. And then you know what kind of activities and go in and assign those and things. So they don't have to be all done in one big load like this. They can be piecemealed. Now, the next thing I like to show is that we have our baselines that we can deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and open a project with baseline in it. And I'm just going to change my layout here. And take a look at what I want to do. And I'm just going to close down this detail window. So I've got my baseline. I've got my actual project costs and all that in here. And then I have kind of a control. I have actually two baselines. So I'm going to change the main baseline and I'm going to keep my other baseline intact. So what I can do is I can go to my upload here and I would go out and I would extract out my baseline information and then I could edit it. So again, I've used the functionality in Excel to take my original duration my original labor costs. I'm adding to it that $90 and then I'm debiting another one. So none of my costs are changing. And I'm going to actually let Excel make sure that my calculation is correct. I also have some found work. So that's these two activities here. So as I was going along, we had found work during our turnaround, and I'm going to add those two tasks without any, of course, information on the labor costs or the units or anything like that. And I'm going to add it to both the project as well as the baseline. Now, again, here, I could use the functionality of my Excel to maybe narrow it down. So this is a lot of activities, but I really only have to touch 6 of them. So what I could do is I could filter this down to only the ones that are not blank, and then just save this with only these lines in it. And then it's only going to have to load 6 lines in there. So let's go ahead and again, upload that. And go back to Primavera and get my project refreshed. And now I can see where I have my 270 that came across, my 90, my difference that I have, my variance here, as well as that new task here. I can tell that because I have put a scope of added activity in here. So I can tell the ones that were there originally, and then I have a code that is designated this being an added activity. Very easy to manipulate that. Now, a lot of times, as Ian was talking about, you have users that you don't necessarily want in P6, but you need to have progress reported. Maybe they don't know P6. Maybe they don't really have a good working knowledge of it. Maybe you just don't want to have them in your database. I mean, whatever the case may be, but you do want them to have the ability to update those these activities. Now, these are two very simple projects, so only a couple of activities in each. Right now, they're not started. So what I could do is I can go into P6-Loader and I could extract the information I needed. So if I'm doing this several times and I do it maybe every 2 weeks, every month to send that out, I can actually save a definition for extraction. So in this case, I have saved my project updates. So I can select that definition, I can load it, and it's going to come in and it's going to show me what is actually taking place there. So I am doing an activity. I'm bringing just the activities out, and I can customize the columns that I want P6-Loader to bring out. So I don't have to bring out all the columns. So what I can do is I have my available columns that I can bring in, and I can move them over and say, I just want these columns on the right here to be pulled out, to be extracted when I do this extraction. So I could set this up, I can save it, and I can use it over and over again. The same holds true for the projects that I want it to actually be using here. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to take a look for those. And I can see, and my scroll is not working again, but I do have two. You can kind of see that. Let me just, I'll narrow it down some more. Okay, so I can see the two projects that I'm going to pull out the information more for. So then I have this all ready to go. If I already had this done, I could simply load the definition and tell P6-Loader that I want to extract that information. I could then download it. I can sort it out so that I could see maybe by a certain code which activities I need to send out to what contractors or the group that's going to update it. And then I just need to send out a copy of this spreadsheet with the appropriate activities on it for them to update. Now, when I get this back, I can actually have this all ready to go. So you can see I have my milestones that have been completed. They're 100% complete. I have actual starts on those. And then I have a couple that are in progress. So they were able to put that they were in progress. They're 25 and 10% done. The start date that they were started on. And if needed, I could do a suspend and resume date. And then I always include the planned start and the planned finish so that they can see when they were supposed to be started and finished. And if need be, they can just, copy this over, and it makes it very easy for them to update their date in there. So at the same time, I'm going to actually set my data date on my two projects too. So it's ready for me to schedule these as soon as I am ready. As soon as I have this loaded in, it's going to go out and it's going to change that data date for me, and then I can schedule it. So let's go out again into P6-Loader. We're going to do an upload and load that file. Once it's complete, I can then update my progress and take a look at all of those. Now, one thing, I didn't show you that other sheet. Another thing I can do is I can actually do some actuals in different buckets. So let me just quickly go back to that sheet and show you how that's done. So this resource assignment period actuals, I can actually put it, if you are using different bucket planning or bucket updating, things like that, I can actually define what occurred in each month, the amount in this, or the units in this case. I can do not just units, but I can do costs as well. And I can update those and have those load in at the same time. So I do have those that came in on these activities. So you can see those buckets that have the different units in there. So with that, that is my live set portion. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Ian here so that he can wrap us up.
Thanks, Sue. Just bring my slides up here.
And as Ian is wrapping up, if you happen to have any questions that you would like to put in the chat, feel free to do so, and we can answer those towards the end.
Yeah, so some of our customers have come up with some really interesting questions or comments about P6-Loader. For example, people have said things like, it's saved so much of our time and made our lives so much easier, and saved us from doing things that are tedious and are not really value add. So we have more time available to do things that you know are valuable. Like we do less data entry, so we have more time to analyze the schedule. Um, one I really like is the one on the upper left where the client says, "I wish we'd done this a couple of years ago." This is a client that I tried for 2 years to sell P6-Loader to, and she finally decided to try it out and immediately became a big fan um, of the tool. So some of our clients, we'll talk about a few case studies here. We've got clients all over the world using P6-Loader. And some of them are in construction, some are engineering, some are utilities. Basically, anybody who uses or P6 can usually find a use for P6-Loader. We even have a high security version of P6-Loader that doesn't have any access out to the internet, which a lot of defense contractor clients are using. And we can help get P6-Loader up and running very quickly. We're a full stop Primavera P6 shop. We have tools, we do training, we do implementation, we do upgrades. If you want to move to the cloud or move off the cloud, we can help with that. And we do training and general consulting. All right, as Sue said, if you have any questions about P6-Loader, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
So Donna also put up a poll to kind of ask if you would like us to reach out to you to maybe talk to you more about P6 and some of the ways that you would be using P6-Loader and what types of things might be helpful to you. If you wanted to answer any of those, you can certainly answer those, and we can reach out to you concerning those particular pain points.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any questions. So if you do think of anything and you'd like to reach out to us, our contact information is here. You can reach us in North America. Donna, who's on the call, is our representative in the Philippines. We have contact information there for Australia as well. And Sue's contact information is on the screen. So if you have specific questions about things you've seen tonight, or you'd like to perhaps explore how P6-Loader might fit your requirements, feel free to reach out to Sue, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
We'll also have Donna put her email in the chat if you are closer to the Philippines and in that area. She is our business representative in the Philippines. So Donna, if you could put your email in the chat, that would be helpful.
Okay, so Donna's done that. So we haven't got any other questions, so I guess we did a great job of explaining everything, Sue. So again, here's a quick summary of all the things that you can do with P6-Loader. And with that, we thank you for your attendance. And if you, as I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us, and have a great day.